as we continue to witness or to participate in what's going on around us and inside of us. It's very important to realize, what are my privileges? You know, obviously, we don't want to be identified in any direction that diminish the image that we have of ourselves. But in satsang, there is an opportunity to really explore what kind of privilege we have, and we have maybe from our birth, by the family that we happen to be born, by the resources of our family, social class, the country, the education. So in one way or another, we maybe all can identify with having been privileged over other people in one way or another. I definitely realized very early in life that I was very privileged. I maybe didn't put it in this way, but I knew very clearly that I have more than many other people around me. And I know that that put me in a position of great arrogance, of great identification with superiority. We having the opportunity to get the education that I wanted, to navigate in a country where I was privileged. It took me a long time, probably coming to college in Mexico, when I began to realize this privilege, when I really wake up by the environment, by the people around me of different social class, by the awareness of some of my peers, students, of social injustice. I remember very clear the day that I realized that the privilege that I have in my life of education or traveling in a foreign country were really in the back of others people, of less privilege, or working class, or servants. It really was a great waking up for me, because to that point, I thought that life was normal, like it was, and that I happened to be who I was. That's all. I never totally, fully questioned, really, to the depth that I did in my 20s when I came to Mexico, and I was forced to meet with people who had the capacity to question my assumptions, my privileged ideas, my identification with power or class. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it, because I had come from a family who worked hard to build this empire, to have money, to have workers, to have servants. So I thought that that was a rightness, you know, to that what I have, it was something that really precious belonged to me. I never even realized that, wait a second, even when I was deeply touched by the people who work in my house, who I have a great connection and loving, and we were really close, but I never totally questioned. Even I identify very much with Fidel Castro being one of the presidents that brought some hope for my island. And I felt that I wanted to, be part of that. I couldn't understand the full picture of what concerning to me. I was like, oh, the policeman, the system, the United States empire, the government. But I never realized that I was part of that system. I thought that I was deserving by being born, how I bore everything that I happen to have. So it was a very amazing process to begin to come down from a world of privilege to a world of honestly understanding that I was standing in the top of so many people which were under me. So that process really was a great way of waking up to a layer of beginning to land in a place where I realized more and more what was my role to play if I wanted to be truthful to what I had discovered, how I wanted to be in the world. Do I wanted to continue to escalate into more and more power, or I wanted to serve a life of investigation, questioning, and telling the truth? Now, from willing that to be that, it takes time and it takes a whole process of realizing. And then my really, really turning point was to come into the United States and then be submitted to be in the other side, no privilege, a woman of color, someone who do not speak well the language, with great amount of limitations, in front of a culture that I felt very threat, very diminished. I remember one of the turning point for me was when I happened to go out with the wife or the partner or the boss of my husband, and I came into the car. I brought a little gift from Mexico, and she was really very white, blonde, blue eyes. And when I came to kiss her, to embrace her, she went back. And I was like shocked. I couldn't really, really, really understand what happened. What is this? So I was like puzzled because I really didn't understand the codes of behavior of the culture. I had no idea how Black and white people relate to each other and where were the boundaries, where do you can say something or you cannot say something else. I had no idea. So that began to be really a inquiry for me, investigation. What happened? What I did wrong? How this happened? And slowly I began to realize and come to realize, yeah, I am not white, but I am not Black either. So, and I am Black and I am white. So I had a whole, it's a culture to force me to define myself, to understand where I was standing. And I had to realize that I was standing nowhere. I had no land to stand because I didn't understand the code of behavior. How do you relate with this person? How you relate with that person? I thought that the African American were like my brothers and my sister, and suddenly they say, no, wait, you are not Black enough to be one of us. And I was like puzzled. I said, wait, hold a second. So, my whole life in the United States was a life of awakening in many ways, but in another way was a life of great degree of pain and suffering, because I was very confused in the early stage because I didn't understand the dynamic, and I felt I just couldn't handle the whole thing. So thanks to women, especially women who, Black and white, who actually taught me what was going on, told me this is racial situation here. So obviously I get enraged and angry, but I was thankful for my own process internally, that my impulse was to close the gap, to close this antagonism, because I was coming from a culture where we were mixed race. And we have white and we have Black and we have brown skin and we dance together and we have all these things. So I say, okay, let's bring this to this culture, so where we can begin to see our own humanity. That at the end, we here together. So it has been a great journey for me. But my point today is to see that it doesn't matter how much we wanted to detach from what is going on in the world. We have this opportunity now to investigate directly where I still slave myself with ideas and identification with superiority, with power, with money, with whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Or the opposite, how I identify myself as a victim, as somebody who didn't have enough, who could be in better place, who didn't born in the right family, who couldn't get whatever everybody else get. Is to really explore together how it's possible for each one of us to really come to a place when we can see all the conditioning. Because in reality, I was privileged. Apparently I was, how I born and grew up. But at the same time, I wasn't privileged at all either. Because when they are privileged and identification with power, guess what? What get lost is the connection with the heart. So you can be embedded in a family who can have all the financial resources, but the energy goes so much to that layer that we forget to love, that we forget to be vulnerable, that we forget that we are living human beings. So I come from a business family, from my father and my grandfather, and a business family is about money. How much can we make? How high can we go? How much money we can accumulate? How the best car can we have? So Then the other half, who are less privileged financially, are focusing in how well can I love. So for me, since my early age, I was in this kind of dualistic consideration about what is it? What it makes some people poor? What makes some people rich? And that escalate. What make a country to be poor? Like a little tiny island of the Dominican Republic, why are we poor? We have a beautiful nature, we have river, we have mangoes, we have papaya, we have music, we have dance, we have this incredible trust for life. Why are we poor and less than United States or a European country? So all those questions were questions that was really, and I remember, and I probably, I remember when I meet my husband, one of the things that he said, oh, you are coming from one of the poorest country in the world. I was shocked. Wait a second. What that means, I felt insulted. How is that? So we all have been participating in the configuration that we see happening in the world, because then we have Haiti next door to Dominican Republic, and they are more Black, they are more poor, they are more uneducated, they have less than us. So then we relate it to the Haitian as the one who are less. So in whatever configuration you put yourself to be, we are in the middle of all of this. We are less than the one who are in top and we feel inferior. We are more than the one who are less and we feel superior. And so the investigation today for me is very fascinating, because one of my mentor, who I love dear, who passed away, is still in her 80s, a beautiful spiritual being. She said, Norris, every day I have to become aware. If my mind is telling me that I am ahead of somebody and superior, or I am behind somebody, or I feel inferior. So it was very fascinating to see someone at that level, at that age, is still being, in vigilia, or the tendency or the conditioning pattern of the mind, because only by awakening to the true nature of who we are, we begin to be free from that dichotomy of the mind, who constantly is comparing ourselves in one way or another. And I totally are very, I will say, fully aware of that, because when I met my teacher, Gangaji, a white woman, blondie, blue eyes, I never imagined that I was going to surrender to a teacher that was going to be an American white woman. And in my teacher, I fully surrender. And I fully surrender because I met someone who saw who I was, who am I. She didn't see the color of my skin. She went directly to the core of my being. And that allowed me to fully surrender. Even when Gangaji confessed publicly, I come from the South, I come from Mississippi. I grew up in a racist family. I have Black servants. I have privilege. And she too had to undergo to that awakening process where she could be free from the conditioning that she happened to grow up. And that's the gift of awakening. The gift of awakening is not that we get illuminated and become a saint. It's basically that we open to see all the conditioning that had keeping us separate from the rest of the world, separate from humanity. That we realize in this fullness of realizing our true nature, that we are one, that is our true being, the oneness at the core of our being. So then from there, it's possible to love the enemy, because then they are no enemy. And that for me has been a very important realization, because I cannot disconnect my spiritual life from the life that I live. It's impossible. It's not such a thing of sitting and being able to protect oneself from the world and become this spiritual being, disconnected and detached of the tragedy of existence. So everything that is happening, as painful as it is the way how life is shaking us all, forcing us to see, to be in a world that right now is chaotic, there is violence, and we don't know how this is going to turn out. We can have great hope, and I feel that this is a great opportunity to redirect the way how society have been existing in this device of race and class and money and power, but we don't know. So not knowing is not a terrible place to be either, because not knowing is telling the truth. It's realizing that we cannot know. But what is real and true is that we can, in this moment, be what we are. And in this being what we are is a possibility to be free. It's a possibility to be free. So a little bit of my invitation today is to see how can we explore a little bit. How is it for every one of us in this place internally, our life history? How has been the different awakening that we have through our life, and investigate what is left that need to be looked at, that need to be seen,